Engoron issued a major ruling against Donald Trump. They're already promising to appeal. Alina Habba says these people are not getting away with it, and Trump is prepared to post bond so that he can actually take this appeal up and get this all reversed. And if people like Kevin O'Leary are right, it will be reversed because it's insane. Trump got hit with a verdict from Engoron, this guy who sent out bonus torso photos to his high school newsletter. And so we call him Engoron, aka Judge Areola, aka the Nip, because his nips were out in his newsletter to all of his constituents. A strange dude. But he was also up on the bench with his GF, Allison Greenfield, who was kind of the co-judge with him, and then he gagged all of Trump's lawyers, and he gagged Trump as well, and the trial was a total sham. We covered it here. He threatened them with sanctions, hit him with $10,000 here and there, all for just articulating that maybe his relationship with his GF was inappropriate. So inappropriate that they moved the cameras so that you couldn't see what was happening because they don't want it on record. And that's what he looks like, right? It's kind of weird how they all look like they've been twisted by the dark side, but maybe it's because they have. So obviously a devastating ruling for anyone who's not used to these political attacks. But Trump came out and he responded to this and he's like, well, I guess we just better win. Almost nonplussed about being hit with a $400 million verdict. Here's what he sounds like, strong and fortified as ever, marching forward.
He's a crooked judge by a radical left-wing judge, was a lawless and unconstitutional atrocity that sets fire to our laws like no one has ever seen in this country before. That happens in banana republics. It doesn't happen in this country. The case is a complete and total sham. It's a sham case. There were no victims, no defaults, no damages, no complaints, no nothing. There was nothing. The actual bankers who were involved in the loan transactions that were talked about testified at the trial. They said that Donald Trump was a highly sought after whale. They called me a whale. I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't know if they meant a whale from the standpoint of being a little heavy or a whale because I got a lot of money, but I think they meant the second. But he's a whale of a client. We love him. He's a whale of a client, one of the strongest personal balance sheets that they've ever seen, and he was actually very overqualified for the loan. I didn't even need this loan. Those banks earned more than $100 million in profits doing business with me and my companies. They were very happy, and they testified that way.
They did.
The expert witness, one of the most respected anywhere in the country, anywhere in the United States, said that my financial statements were the best that he's ever seen. That's not bad. The best that he's ever seen. This was a case of satisfied banks and insurance companies which made a lot of money dealing with me, and a lot of very happy money and good money. Great financial statements, the best, really great financial statements that didn't even include the most valuable asset, the Trump brand. Ironclad disclaimer. Do you know what a disclaimer is? We have an ironclad disclaimer. That's like
do your own due diligence.
It means do your own due diligence.
Yes.
Don't believe what you're reading. It's all good, but don't even believe it. Go out and do your own due diligence. You have to do that. We had an unbelievable disclaimer, and the amazing properties, some of the best all over the world, and highly underleveraged. We're very underleveraged as a company. I had very little debt, a lot of cash, because we built a great company. And, you know, unlike these other politicians, I knew it would happen. I didn't think it would be this much, but I knew I would lose $1 billion or $2 billion
Sheesh.
if I was honest running for president and being president. And that's what I lost, maybe a couple of $1 billion. It was the best thing I ever did, because we've made our country, we made it great. They've blown it, but we're going to make it greater than ever before.
All right, so Trump still strong, right? A $450 million verdict for most people make you sick for about 2 years, but we're back in business, man. He's out there still talking about it. So I think he is going to be vindicated ultimately. People are going to see this for what it is, but we're going to go through the opinion. It is 92 pages, so let me just show you what's inside. Not going to spend a lot of time on it. Kevin O'Leary is going to explain it's insane. Christopher Kise is going to respond, and then we'll hear from Alina Habba, who's really going to explain what their next steps are. But here is what the opinion looked like from Engoron, aka the Nip, aka Areola. He issued this one in the case of Letitia James versus Donald Trump. You see, this is Arthur Engoron presiding, and here's what he wrote. In the summary, he said Trump and entities control many valuable properties, including office buildings, and acquiring these properties required huge amounts of cash. We know. Maybe he should have talked to Fannie. Now, accordingly, the entities borrowed from banks and other lenders. The lenders required personal guarantees from Trump, which were based on statements of financial condition. Now, Trump also had accountants that were engaged to do this work. Now, the accountants created these compilations based on data submitted by the Trump entities. Now, in order to borrow more money at lower rates, Engoron says that the defendants submitted blatantly false financial data to the accountants, resulting in and fraudulent financial statements. And again, Kevin O'Leary is going to come and explain that they're not false financial data, right? They are differing opinions about what the value of a very subjective piece of property is. When confronted at trial with the statements, Trump, his witnesses simply denied reality. Okay, that's what Engoron said. And Trump failed to accept responsibility. So Trump's like, I didn't do what you said I did. And so he's going to penalize him for that. Or to impose internal controls to prevent future recurrences. Now, as detailed, this court now finds they are liable, wants the independent monitor to stay over the business, ordered the installation of a director of compliance, and limited their rights to conduct business in New York for a few years. Now, it's a 92-pager. It's very self-indulgent. We know Areola, is very nipple-tastic in his personal affairs. And so this felt like he probably just had his shirt off, just with different, whipped cream or something, kind of rubbing and enjoying himself. So we're not going to partake in that because it's disgusting. But there was one section in here about Michael Cohen, and he says Michael Cohen is very credible and is a very, reasonable person, even though this dude is a convicted perjurer. And so here is what he said. Michael Cohen joined the Trump Organization as executive vice president and special counsel to Donald Trump. And during his entire tenure, he reported directly to Donald. Now, Cohen, he notes, pleaded guilty to several counts of tax evasion, 1 count of misrepresentation, 2 counts of violating campaign finance laws, and 1 count of misrepresentation to Congress, okay? Perjury, called a liar. Now, beginning in 2012, Trump asked Cohen to prepare this stuff. And Cohen, the convicted liar, came in and confirmed, I was tasked by Trump to increase total assets based on a number he arbitrarily selected. Nice job, Michael Cohen. Do you remember that line in the mirror? Did you practice that on your 3x5 card? He came in and he said, my job was to reverse engineer and achieve the number that Trump wanted. So this reverse engineering took place between Cohen and Trump, and he said Trump would intentionally give indirect instructions. Like Trump would say, I'm not actually worth $4.5 billion. I'm really worth more like 6. And then Cohen would try to go reverse engineer it and then create these fictional numbers. And here Cohen said Trump did not even specifically say something like, Michael, go inflate the numbers. He said, no. Trump talks like a mob boss. What he tells you to do is he wants you to do it without specifically telling you. Okay, so Trump never actually even said anything specific like this, and he just went and did it. Now, Cohen was a member of the team of 4. Cohen was an important witness, and his testimony was compromised because he pleaded guilty. But nevertheless, the fact finder does not believe that pleading guilty means that you can never tell the truth. Here is what Areola Engoron, the nip, he says Michael Cohen told the truth. Yeah. All right. So here he goes through the rest of this. Now, he talks about Ivanka Trump and he talks about her role. He said that she was trying to secure projects and she didn't remember certain things. And Ivanka Trump does not recall, in the absence of her memory, the documents speak for themselves. The court found her inconsistent and suspect as a result. Here's what the order ultimately looks like. Then we'll get to some reaction, and including reaction from Trump's defense. So here they tell us all these people are liable, okay? Trump, Eric Trump, Trump Jr., and all the rest of them are liable under the causes of action, and says that they owe $168 million with interest on these properties. And again, the distinction here was a difference of valuation. They say Trump got lower interest rates because of the things that he proffered to the banks. Here's another $126 million, $60 million here. We've got $4 million here. That's for Eric Trump, Trump Jr., $4 million. Weisselberg, the CFO, $1 million. Weisselberg and Jeffrey permanently enjoined from doing business in New York. Trump cannot serve as an officer for 3 years. Same stuff on the revocable trust. Eric Trump is enjoined from serving as an officer, and the rest of it. Barbara Jones, the woman who made millions of dollars being appointed as the independent monitor, she's going to keep being paid. And you see the rest of it, right? It's just a total attack job by Arthur Engoron. We covered the trial at length, and it was all a sham. We expected it to be coming. And I think the next big thing is that they're, of course, going to be appealing this. Christopher Kise, Trump's lawyer, responded to this. He said, the court today ignored the law, ignored the facts, and simply signed off on the Attorney General's manifestly unjust political crusade against the front-running candidate for the President of the United States. Says legal cases, this is Trump's defense, are supposed to be decided based on the application of established legal principles to the actual evidence. During 44 days of trial, not one witness, not one complaint, and not one victim supported the Attorney General's manufactured claims of fraud. Moreover, the evidence established that Trump's net worth far exceeded what was even reported on his financial statements. Even the bankers actually involved in the loans themselves, they testified during the trial we covered. There was nothing misleading. thing. There was no fraud, and the transactions were all highly profitable. But the court blatantly refused to follow a binding appellate division decision. Just said, we'll do whatever we want. They ignored and they twisted the evidence, and they imposed a draconian and unconstitutional fine and a corporate death penalty on President Trump, his family, and the extraordinary global business empire that he developed over a lifetime of hard work and achievement. Hard to imagine a more unfair process, and hard to believe this is happening in America. Christopher Kise, counsel for Trump, says, make no mistake, the sobering future consequences of this tyrannical abuse of power do not just impact President Trump. When a court willfully allows a reckless government official to meddle in the lawful, private, and profitable affairs of any citizen based on political bias, America's economic prosperity and way of life are at extreme risk of extinction. Now, both the trial and this unprincipled decision have certainly diminished public confidence in the integrity of the legal system, but left unchecked, this decision will cause irreparable damage to both the business community and the rule of law in our country. Trump will, of course, appeal and remains confident that the appellate division will ultimately correct the innumerable and the catastrophic errors made by a trial court untethered to law or to reality. Signed by Christopher Kise, counsel for Donald Trump, President Trump, and of course, this will be appealed. But this is what Kevin O'Leary, another real estate developer, someone else with a lot of money, here's what he said about this when he was asked about this over on CNN.
And let's leave out politics and just talk about what happens in real estate development anywhere. So if you're a developer and you've got a building on a block anywhere in America and it's worth, let's say, $500 million, and you want to build a building right beside it, you go to the bank and say, this building is worth $500 million. I'd like to borrow a construction finance loan against this asset, and I want you to tell me it's worth $500 million too. And the bank negotiates with you and says, well, no, we think it's worth $400 million. And you fight it out. You're always trying to show your assets in the brightest light with the sunshine you can possibly determine for them. You want them to be worth the very most because you're only going to get a 40 or 50% loan to value, as it's called. Then you borrow that money. In the case of a $500 million asset, maybe you get $250 million, and you build a new building with a construction finance loan. And so that's what this case is all about. And by the way, forget about Trump. Every single real estate developer everywhere on earth does this. They always talk about their asset being worth a lot, and the bank says no. And that's just the way it is. So in this case, when I'm trying to figure out, and I'm not pro or con, or I don't care about the politics, who lost money? Nobody. The bank got paid back the construction finance loan, and a new building was built. And if you're going to sue this case and win, you got to sue every real estate developer everywhere. This is all they do. This is what they do all day long, every day. So I don't think this thing will ever survive appeal, regardless of what the fine is. This doesn't even make sense.
All right, we'll see what happens, but Kevin O'Leary and many others are wondering, what is every other real estate developer going to do now if all they need to do is just say that you had an opinion about your assets, about your worth? Now, apparently that opinion will be worth taking your entire business away from you, disgorging you of $500 million. Letitia James, the woman who campaigned on this, right? The woman who already had her mind made up before she even took office, she came out and posted this ridiculous announcement after the verdict was handed down. Someone wrote this rhyme for her. I do not think that she had the capabilities of doing this herself. But remember, Trump wrote the book called The Art of the Deal. She reiterated that to be called The Art of the Steal. Wow.
Today, justice has been served. Today, we prove that no one is above the law, no matter how rich, powerful, or politically connected you are.
Hey, Tish, you sat on your butt on the bench for 6 weeks. You did nothing.
Everyone must play by the same rules.
Why didn't you argue?
We have a responsibility to protect the integrity of the marketplace. And for years, Donald Trump engaged in deceptive business practices.
All right, that's enough of her. So that's Tishy Letish. Let's go to Alina Habba in the house because she is going to explain they are ready to go. They have, if we choose to appeal this, we're going to post bond and then we'll take this up on the next court level.
The full amount and some, and we will be prepared to do that.
So, but how much is the bond?
So you have to break it up. So there were obviously individual defendants that got fined. There was the company that got fined, but you're looking at roughly, let's call it close to $400 million for something that he did nothing wrong. Look, it's no coincidence, and I'll say it. They know by looking at his statements of financial condition that this guy is worth a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars. And that didn't even include his brand, Martha. But what they're trying to do between this case, between my last case, is put him out of business. It's not going to work, number one. Number two, what they're doing is a scare tactic. Unfortunately, they picked the wrong guy to pick on, in my opinion, because he's strong, he's resilient, and he happens to have a lot of cash. Now, he
does have some cash. cash. Nobody wants to post up $400 million, but they are prepared to appeal, and Alina Habba is ready to go in order to do that. So we see that Trump has some cash, $400 million, and I don't know if he's gonna have to post that whole thing. Sometimes they'll require you to post, a percentage of the bond, and I don't know if that's all been decided yet, but $400 million that you got to put in escrow? Oh my gosh. Sheesh. Okay, here's Ted Cruz. My friends, Ted Cruz has a podcast. If somebody subscribes to it, maybe he'll stop talking about it and get back to work in the Senate. But we do like Ted Cruz. He's up for re-election now in Texas, and so he's hitting the airwaves, and he's explaining to us that all of these attacks are attacks on the rule of law. Here's Ted.
Look, I think we are seeing a systematic and sustained assault on the rule of law. We're seeing an assault on the Constitution, and we're seeing fundamentally an assault on democracy. What has happened in Washington, it's really frightening and it's really sad. Democrats have become radicalized, and they have decided that partisan politics matters more than the rule of law. They're willing to weaponize the Department of Justice. They're willing to utterly abuse government power to try to stay in power. The judge's decision in New York is an outrage. This was a partisan Democrat judge adjudicating on a case brought by a partisan Democrat attorney general. Letitia James campaigned on saying, I'm going to get Donald Trump. She got in front of this smirking, sanctimonious partisan Democrat, who then, in that case, understand this judge just ordered Donald Trump to pay over $350 million for an offense that had no victim, that involved giant international banks that made money, didn't lose money, and that were eager to loan more money. And the entire thesis of it was, well, they say Trump overstated the value of his real estate. The last I checked, these banks were not fragile, vulnerable consumers. They went in and valued the real estate. They were eager to make the loans. They made money on it, and they wanted to make more. But what this is about power and trying to destroy Donald Trump.
Ted.
Why? Because ultimately, this is about attacking democracy. They want to stop the voters from voting for Donald Trump. It is dangerous, the brazen cynicism with which they're willing to abuse the justice system to try and stay in power at all costs.
Hey, that's a good little rant there from Ted Cruz. He probably would do a good job with a podcast. He's always talking about his podcast. I was waiting for him to plug it, but maybe he got a subscriber. I don't know. Hopefully he did. So shout out to Ted Cruz, and I think he's absolutely right, and he hit it on the head. They are trying to steal the election, basically, which is why they're doing this. And the attacks are getting a little more monstrous, right? They're going after Trump for $450 million. Delaware goes after Elon, right? The state is now taking action, not only against Trump, but other people who are threatening their power. And Trump is currently the one under the most scrutiny here, and this is just another avenue of attack. Now, they'll appeal it. Alina says they're ready to go, and so we're going to be here continuing to cover this one and all of the others, my friends. Thank you for joining and subscribing, but we'll be here, my friends, continuing to cover this and all of the Trump prosecutions and ballot removals and civil litigations and SCOTUS appeals, and so thank you for joining us as we do. PDFs are available at robertgovea.com, so if you wanted to do any further reading on anything we covered, go there, check it out, sign up for the newsletter, robertgovea.com, and if you want to join a live event for free, go to watcherlodge.com. We've got food sovereignty coming up, Zen wellness coming up. They're going to be a lot of fun, and they're all free, so check them out. Links are in the description below. We're going to be back here, my friends, to cover this and more, and we'll look forward to seeing you back here as we do.